Welcome to Quick Hits, Greenspoon Marder's single source for all you need in the cannabis world. I'm Nick Richards, your host, and I am so excited today to have Darren Gleeman on the program, managing partner of MBO Ventures, and we're going to talk about ESOPs in the cannabis space. Darren's a true expert in the area, and Darren, I'm really excited about this. I've been hearing about these ESOPs for a number of years now, and I've always kind of thought, how does that work? Is that really a way to get around 280E? And I haven't really seen one happen, but I know you guys are making it work and making it happen. So I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, Nick. Darren Gleeman here. Yes, to me, I agree. I'm super excited to actually be with you right now and actually explain what this is. An ESOP is just another way for a company to sell themselves, right? You can sell yourself to private equity. You can sell yourself to a strategic buyer, or you can decide to sell yourself to the employees. Yay, great. But why? Why should you sell to your employees? Well, the government wants you to do it. They've been wanting to do this for a long time, since the 1970s, because if an employee becomes an owner, that's much better for the employee. They can now have a lot more money for themselves. So what did the government do? The government decided to give business owners huge tax incentives, huge tax subsidies. And the one tax subsidy that we're talking about here, which is what makes 280E irrelevant, is that if you sell 100% of your company to this ESOP, the company itself runs completely tax-free, zero federal tax, zero state tax, and this thing called UBIT, unrelated business income tax. So when you end up not having to pay any of these taxes, these income taxes, it does not matter that 280E exists. 280E becomes irrelevant. Hence, if your company, for instance, is making $2 million a year in EBITDA, in net income, EBITDA is the fancy investment banking word we call it, but basically net income, right? If your company is making $2 million before tax, right now you're paying, let's say, $1.2 million in tax to the government. If we reschedule and become Schedule 3, instead of having tax of 1.2 million, your tax will be, let's say, 800,000. It's still a lot of tax, which is tremendous. You structure it as this ESOP, and that completely goes away.
And then the individuals who receive money from the company just pay individual income tax, I guess. And is there a sweet spot for this? Is this across the board any cannabis company, or is there an ideal company that would fit into this model?
Yeah, I would say for a startup, it doesn't really make sense. For the company itself, it makes sense. If you're making even $250,000 a year in net income, it makes sense because you're still paying taxes, and the cost to complete this every year, the annual fee, let's say it's about 50 grand. So even if you're making $250,000, it makes sense for the company, but not for the owners. Because if the owner's selling their company, it's a new company, right? And they're making $250,000, but they think they'll be making millions of dollars down the road, they're going to be giving up way too much, right? Mm-hmm. They want to wait. So the sweet spot is about, I would say, 2.5 million in EBITDA. That would be not the sweet, that's the floor to actually do this ESOP structure. And that's because for the owner themselves, now they're going to get upside. Even when the owner sells it for $2 million and they're selling it 100%, they sell, they're still going to get warrants to be able to buy back a chunk of the company in the future, which incentivizes them to work along with the company, because now they have 2 bites at the apple. They sell it today to the ESOP, and then they get these warrants, which allows them down the road when they get another exit. Let's say Budweiser comes in to buy the company, or 7-Eleven comes in to buy the dispensaries. At that point, they can also do well with their warrants, and the employees do incredibly well because they have that equity portion.
So we've got public companies in the cannabis space, we've got private companies, a lot of companies are C Corps. Is there an entity structure that doesn't work, or do all of those structures work?
All structures will work. In ESOP itself, for this to work specifically, it has to be an S corporation. But that doesn't matter, because what we'll do is the restructuring, right, Nick? I mean, if someone comes in, right, and they're an LLC, we go from an LLC first to a C. We have to do some stuff for them there, and then we bring it to the S corporation. So it doesn't really matter. Now, if you're a public company, that's a different story, because a public company, they're all C corporations, and it's public. So you have all these owners. the way it works with an ESOP is that there is only one owner. That is the employee stock ownership trust. Now I'm getting into the weeds. Sorry if you're getting a little bit boring here. That's the employee stock ownership trust is the owner. When you're structured as an S corporation, all of the income flows into that employee stock ownership trust, which doesn't pay any taxes. So when that employee stock ownership trust gets their K-1 form, which every single S corporation in the country, once you do your tax returns, all the owners get a K-1. Well, there's only one owner here, this employee stock ownership trust. They get the K-1. The accountant looks at it and they file it away and they don't pay taxes. A public company, in order to do this, they would have to actually convert to becoming a private company, which is very difficult. But there are ways for public companies to take advantage of this. Other ways.
So it seems like it's a year 4 or 5 kind of moment for a lot of companies where that is the ideal moment, and which would maybe year 3, which would be great for owners too, because they tend to make the money in the early years, and then competition comes in and things get tough and profits get narrow in the later years, right?
Yeah, so we structured 3 companies that we just structured as ESOPs, the first ones in the country. And we just did that back in December. We have about 8 more companies that are coming on board. And I would say most of those companies have been around from, I guess, about 3 years to, I guess, about 8 years. So you're right. That is definitely the sweet spot of when they would do it.
Are there any legacy issues or anything like that, or does that all kind of go away once it converts? For example, California's got a lot of interesting hair on that beast because of its gray area market in the early days and all that kind of stuff. It seems to me that kind of isn't really an issue here. You don't have a third party that's concerned about those things.
Nope. There's no issue at all. No
Yeah.
legacy issues. It's all state by state, municipality by municipality. Every state you can do it. It's just that's where we have the attorneys to come in and figure out ways to get it done. The one state that right now we still can't get it done is in the state of Washington because they have something called true party of interest issues. Other than that, we can get it done. And
is that just a matter of where you are incorporated, or is that where you are doing business?
Where you are doing business. And when you're doing business, then you have the cannabis control boards. And so in the state of Washington, they have these weird rules that, the true party of interest rule they won't allow trusts, which is weird, but they won't allow trust. And in order for the ESOP to work, you create this trust. Everywhere else you can create the trust except for Washington. And Washington happens to love ESOPs. They love employee ownership. So they need to fix this one little piece of the rule.
Right. That's weird. You'd think Washington would be all over that, and the problem would be, I don't know, Kentucky or something.
Yeah, it's
right.
It's definitely bizarre. But yeah, for all states, in every state, for instance, Massachusetts, a little bit of issues. You know what? We get together with the attorneys. I'm the moron in the room. I'm the one that goes around and I'll just say anything. Because if we have an idea and no one knows what to do, I'm going to say the thing that maybe I shouldn't say, or how about this? How about that? I'm not afraid of being the dumb person in the room. And you know what? Usually that'll spur on an idea and then you figure it out. So every state will be able to figure it out. It shouldn't be an issue.
And you said you did 3 in December. Was there I want to hear a little bit more about that. I also want to know, was that a key moment, December, end of the year, that you want to get these done, or can it happen at any time of year, or what's the story there?
Yeah, there is a key moment in December to get it done by December 31st for most companies. We figured out, again, in the normal world, it doesn't really matter. But we had it for cannabis is slightly different. So for most companies, yes, you want to be able to do it by the end of December, but we figured out a way to do it mid-year. You become very innovative when you find a problem. And when you sit in a room, again, with very smart attorneys, very smart CPAs, how about this? And all of a sudden, you know what? That works. But yes, the end of December really is, most ESOPs take place at the end of December. And that really is because in order to do a conversion to the S corporation, it has to be after the end of your calendar year. Calendar's year is mostly end of December 31st. So then you have 75 days to get that S corporation election, again, to be very much in the woods.
Right. Darren, you said 100% owned. is that a requirement, or could it be 75? Like, let's say I want to buy a company, but I can only buy 25%, and I want the employees to own the other 75%. Do things like that work?
It definitely works in other industries. You could do it, it just doesn't make sense. Here's another tax subsidy. Remember saying there's other subsidies? Normally, when you sell a company, I like to use the example of 100 million, makes it easy, right? If you sell your company, you're making $20 million a year in net income, you're a huge company, you sell for 100 million bucks. You must pay capital gains on that.
Yeah.
Very hard to get around that. I mean, there are ways, but it's very hard. Most companies are not getting around that. So they have to pay about 30% of capital gains, 30 million bucks. However, when you sell to the ESOP, the government allows you to not pay those capital gains. You can defer your capital gains. And if you structure correctly, you can defer those capital gains forever. So that's a very big deal in the industry, not paying the capital gains tax.
Back to this 280E piece. Where does it go? I mean, it just doesn't apply at all because there is no income tax, huh?
It's right. It's very simple. You still fill out your forms. You follow the rule, meaning you're not evading it. You're not evading the tax at all. You're not getting around the tax. The way it works is you fill out your tax return and you don't take deductions, just like the rule says. Now, we've structured over 400 ESOPs in the past 25 years, over 22 billion in enterprise value. We know this structure well. It works in every other industry. They don't care about amortization or depreciation. So it's the same thing in cannabis. If you're a tax-free entity, who cares? Think about it like a Native American tribe, for instance. They don't have to pay tax. They don't care about 280E. It just doesn't matter.
And no issue with illegality in an ESOP or anything like that. I know I've had some 501c3s that have owned some licenses, and the IRS didn't like that.
Well, a 501c3, they can own it, but they have to pay tax, because a 501c3, even though they are tax-free, a 501c3 is tax-free for their donations, but they have to pay something called unrelated business income tax.
Yeah.
Every 501c3, so you can't get around it. Congress in 1998 specifically put into the law that an employee-owned company via this ESOP structure does not pay that UBIT tax. And then President Clinton signed it into law in 1998.
And this has got to be a great way to incentivize employees as well, right? I mean, I know that in the cannabis world, the employees that are in your dispensary are key to the success of your business. Oftentimes people go to specific dispensaries because they like that specific salesperson. And this would seem to a way to keep that people around. I know that cannabis companies are plagued by, revolving door with employees.
Yeah, once the employees take ownership of this and understand what it is, they're not leaving. There's a statistic. Retention rates increase by 300%.
Yeah.
300% for companies that have an ESOP in place, which is huge. And once they start taking ownership, they're just better. They're coming in earlier. Yeah. It's their company. Yeah. It's literally their company. So when you exit, they exit. You have a company now, let's say it's worth, I don't know, $10 million, right? $20 million. These employees now are working with you. They're owners. So let's say 10 years from now, that company gets sold for $100 million. The employees are getting a nice chunk of that $100 million. It's huge, and they understand that. And every year, the employee gets a form. It's a legal requirement. Every year they get a form that shows them, this is how much stock I'm entitled to, and this is the value of that stock. And every year that they stay with the company, they get more and more stock. And every year that they're with the company, they vest more, allowing them to actually take full allocation of the stock that they got. So yes,
Darren, would that look like, would that be would the ESOP then sell the S Corp down the road if there was a sale? Is that how that works?
If there's a sale down the road, this is the way it would work. And let's say the sale's for $100 million. Budweiser comes in, they want to buy it. Every single employee, even if they started the day before, would automatically vest. Now, if you just started the day before, you didn't get much stock allocated to you. You got very little stock. But the people who have been there for a long time are getting a lot of stock. Everyone vests automatically. The ESOP itself is terminated, ends. Warrants are handed in by the owners. They get their stock. The money comes in, let's say it's $100 million, and let's say it comes out to be where the former warrant holders, let's say they have 40%. So of the $100 million, the former warrant holders will get 40 million, and the employees will get $60 million. For that $60 million for the employees, that will go into their retirement accounts, which they do not pay tax on that until they actually take it out. So then it can grow tax-free. The warrant holders who got that $40 million, they would then have to pay capital gains tax on that.
Guys, this is groundbreaking, right? It's tough times in the cannabis space. Darren, thank you so much for your information on this. Darren, tell us where we can find you. Where are you? You in New York? You look like a New Yorker.
I am a New Yorker. Born and bred. I'm in New York City right now. You can reach me at my email, which is dgleeman@mboventures.com. So MBO Ventures is the key. My phone number is 646-734-2035. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. Just, type in Darren Gleeman on LinkedIn. You'll be able to find me.
Hey guys, I hear Darren's going to be at Benzinga. And so if you want to meet with him, reach out, let him know. He'll be there meeting with clients. I'll be there too. Look forward to seeing everybody. And thank you so much for tuning in. Darren, you're awesome, man.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.